exciting announcements coming up. So first of all, we're going to be holding our Women in Tech Mentoring launch event again on October 6th, and it's going to be from 3:30 to 6 p.m. at the College of Charleston Harbor Walk campus again. For those of you who have not been involved or didn't join last time, it was really an awesome opportunity, not only to potentially become a mentee, but also a mentor to other up-and-comers within our tech community. So just want to encourage you to learn more about it, get yourself involved a little bit more, and it'll really help to build your network of supporters in the tech industry. So as you'll see, Jennifer Padilla from our programs committee is leading this effort, and we'll be sending out some further communication soon, specifically through some Google Docs. I think she's going to be asking questionnaires if anyone is interested, again, either in becoming a mentor or a mentee. So please reach out to Jennifer if you have any other questions in the interim. And then also super excited to talk about our holiday event that we want to make sure we can get as much in person as possible. And again, obviously this is all going to be related to what things are looking like in the COVID world. But at this point, we are looking to have an in-person event on Wednesday, December 8th at 5:30, and that will be held at the new Chamber of Commerce building in Park Circle. It's a beautiful facility. We're super excited to have them sponsor that. And also that is our annual fundraising event for Charleston Women in Tech. So if you or someone you know may have donations that you'd be willing to provide, and keep in mind that Charleston Women in Tech has their 501c3 designation, so any donations are tax deductible. Certainly feel free to reach out to me. My contact information there via Slack or email, or certainly Nina or anyone else on the programs committee. So very excited about that as well. And then without further ado, I definitely wanted to talk a little bit more today about navigating one's career journey. I'm so excited to have Jay and Lisa join us from Elastic. They're going to do a much better job introducing themselves, so I'm going to pass it on to them, but really want to talk a little bit more about their unconventional career journey so far, and really talk about how you can continue to kind of be the CEO of your career and push your own limits in developing in the technical community. Jay, can I kick it to you?
Sure, I'll be happy to take it on. Can everybody hear and see me? I'm not a ghost. I was freezing earlier. I wanted to make sure that got fixed. But hi, everyone. I'm Jay Miller. I'm a developer advocate for Elastic. I've been at Elastic for almost a year now, and I'm also the coordinator for our diversity, equity, and inclusion program for the community portion of our team. So I have had plenty of phone calls with these awesome ladies with Charleston Women in Tech, and just seeing how we can best help in any way possible. And before we jump into that, I'm going to let Lisa introduce herself too. Sorry.
Sure. Thanks, Jay. Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Jung, and I'm also a developer advocate. And Jay and I, we work on the same community team. So what I focus on is beginners content. So helping beginner developers understand how to use the Elastic Stack, how to troubleshoot it, and whatnot. So I create a lot of online content on YouTube, as well as doing a lot of live meetups as well.
And I think that they wanted us to explain a little bit about what Elastic is, because if they're anything like me, when I started working at Elastic, I did not know what Elastic did other than like, hey, y'all do the search on website thing. And I was blinded in like amazement at how deep that went. So I'll start, and then I'm gonna definitely let Lisa kick it off because she is the like professional in that area. But from the business side, Elastic is about search. When you think about search, don't think about it just from terms of I'm going to go to google.com, type what I'm looking for, and hopefully get a result. Think about I lost my keys. Think about I don't know where this thing is and I need to find it. Think about what was that time 10 years ago when you had a cough and you don't remember the date and you just have to guess. And sometimes that's all you have to work with is a good guess. And that's what I like to analogize Elastic to. when I think of what Elastic is doing, it's not just finding blog posts on a website. It is often searching for information that you know is there and maybe you just don't know the exact way to find it. Sometimes you do, and that makes it easier to search, but sometimes you just need help in that. And Elastic, in my opinion, does a really fantastic job about working with what you have to find what you're looking for. Whether you're dealing with, a few hundred lines of code that's really simple to read and figure out, or you're dealing with in what I often work with, which is 8 or 9 million records of police call data or civil issues that I'm like working on, or even I know some companies in the space of like gaming, they like look at millions and millions of users that are using their platform regularly, or Yelp or Uber when you're looking for a ride. Elastic powers a lot of those things behind the scenes. And we have a few tools that, again, I'm not the professional to talk about that. That's definitely Lisa, who's done amazing crash courses. So Lisa, let folks know about a few of the products that we have.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jay. I feel like you covered it all. My job is done, but let me just share my screen real quick. All right, what do you see?
I see, have you ever used the Elastic Stack before? So I'm going to type in the chat, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so now that you got this great overview from Jay, I want to kick this off with, have you ever used the Elastic Stack before? So let's see how many of you have heard of it.
Seeing a lot of no's.
Yeah, a lot of no's, yes. Okay, so looks like, okay, heard of not used. Okay, cool. So looks like the majority of you have never heard of Elastic Stack before or have not used it before. But even so, you may be using a lot of apps with certain features that are powered by the Elastic Stack. So as Jay mentioned, if you have ever searched for a ride on Uber, Elastic is the engine that powers the Uber marketplace that connects you to the driver. Now, if you have ever had mad cravings for tacos and were searching for open restaurants on Yelp, Elastic is powering that search as well. So it's hidden under a lot of the apps and websites that you use on a daily basis, which few of them are shown here. So, what is the Elastic Stack exactly? So if you're a developer working with data, the Elastic Stack is a great tool to have on your belt. So it consists of 4 products: Beats, Logstash, Elasticsearch, and Kibana. And with the stack, you can take data from any source in any format, then search, analyze, and visualize in real time. So some of the most popular use cases for the Elastic Stack are logging, metrics, security analytics, and business analytics. So for example, the Elastic Stack is used to store and analyze log data. So if any of you guys are gamers, Blizzard uses the Elastic Stack to analyze gamer and server events. So if the players experience a slowdown or an error, their monitoring team would use the Elastic Stack to figure out what's causing it. Now, it could also be used to gather metrics. And one of my favorite examples is the Mars Curiosity rover. So it sends telemetry, sensor, and photo data into the Elastic Stack for analysis. So if someone wanted to know how hot Mars is on an hourly basis, you can go and pull the data. Okay, so you could also analyze security issues and threats within an environment as well. So you probably have used Slack at your work or meetups before. And what you may not realize is that Slack uses the Elastic Stack in their security operations center to secure communications through their channels. Now, lastly, if you've ever used Tinder, you probably didn't know that the Elastic Stack was helping you find your match. So this is a technology behind using geolocations to match people together. And it's also used to analyze business needs and build custom applications so you could analyze and learn from the data. So for example, Tinder relies on the Elastic Stack to analyze and predict which people a user will swipe right on, or which people will swipe right on that user, and when there's a match. So all of these use cases are made possible by the Elastic Stack. So to recap, the Elastic Stack takes data from any source in any format, then search, analyze, and visualize it in real time. It's a collection of 4 products. So first, we have Elasticsearch, which is the heart of the Elastic Stack. So it allows you to store, search, and analyze your data. Then we have Kibana, which is a visualization tool. And it's a UI that helps you visualize and explore data in Elasticsearch.
That's my favorite one.
Elasticsearch is my favorite. But anyways. Now, in order for us to work with data, we need to get data into Elasticsearch, right? And this is where Beats and Logstash come into play. So Beats are lightweight data shippers that push data into Elasticsearch. And if you need to parse and enrich your data before pushing data into Elasticsearch, then you would use Logstash. So this is just like a brief overview of the Elastic Stack we wanted to give you guys before getting to the meat of the talk. So I will wrap up here.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate that. So Lisa and Jay, you're both developer advocates at Elastic. So can you kind of maybe define for the group a little bit more about what developer relations is and what you're specifically responsible for in your roles?
You want me to go first?
Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, so there isn't one standard definition for DevRel. So if you were to ask 10 different developer advocates, you'll probably get 10 different answers. So for me, I consider myself as a developer's ally, a friend, and a teacher. So as developers, we're constantly learning about like new technology so we could build something awesome. And I find it really frustrating when I'm trying out a product for the first time, and it's hard to even get started because the documentations and other resources are super confusing. And that alone can really deter you from trying out the technology in the first place. And developer advocates are there to remove that barrier. So we're constantly thinking about how we can help developers to build our products to help them reach their goal. Or we think about, well, are there any pain points that we should bring back to our engineering team? Or how do we build a cohesive developer community that people can count on for advice and support? And how we contribute to these goals depends on the expertise and the personality of a developer advocate. So when I joined the company, I was just beginning to learn about the Elastic Stack. And there are a lot of resources out there. But as a beginner, I couldn't really understand the jargon and would get lost in the middle of it because the content's created people who have been working with the Elastic Stack for years and years. So I wanted to help other developers like me who are just getting started with the Elastic Stack. And I wanted to create educational content that clearly and simply explains, what the Elastic Stack is, what do you use it for, how do you use it, and how do you troubleshoot it. So personally, I love teaching and writing. So I created the Beginner's Crash Course to Elastic Stack, which is a series of online workshops. And I also speak at hackathons and conferences and write blogs on how to get started with the Elastic Stack. And I mean, honestly, it's the best job I've ever had. And I also get to work with Jay, which is a huge plus. So I will turn it over to Jay.
So Lisa hit the nail on the head when she mentioned like everyone does it different. My mentors in DevRel are folks like Sam Julien and Brian Douglas and Joe Carlson. And the funny thing about them is Sam runs a newsletter and creates courses. Brian does streaming on Twitch and YouTube videos, and Joe is on TikTok all day. I don't know how he gets paid to just do TikToks all day. It makes me angry, and I want to know why, and I want to know how I can take advantage of that for myself. But at the same time, we've all kind of created our own space in the industry inside of DevRel itself. And I think that's what some of the best advocates do, is they look at like, what are their strengths? For me, mine is creating audio and video content. So I know that Lisa is amazing at teaching beginners. So when I'm thinking of like, how can I create some video content that answers a question from someone in the community that's very beginner focused? It's like, I have to call Lisa. I have to get Lisa on board with this project. And I'm just kind of the person behind the scenes making sure that the stream is running properly, that everyone has the right equipment that they need and everything else. But then also my other, I call them like DevRel superpowers. And to me, every good developer advocate would have one, at least one. Some will have more than one. My other superpower is connecting on a one-to-one level. I always tell people, if you need to reach me, send me a DM or a message on Twitter and just say, hey, I have a question. It can either be technical, it can be about a soft or catalytic skill, one of those things that you're just wondering how to advance. And I try to make it my goal to treat every single person that I work with like I'm working specifically for them and that I'm speaking directly to them. And I feel like having empathy, having the ability to understand what people's needs are and what people's desires are and where they're trying to go, and being able to clear the way to make that happen, that is my job in DevRel. That's how I do my job in DevRel. So again, it's different for everybody, but I definitely think that whether you're writing blog posts, creating videos, or just having phone conversations or conversations on Twitter, like if you're helping your users get to where they're trying to go, whether it's with your technology or something else, then you're doing your job.
Yeah, that is an awesome overview. So just to set the stage, we do have a couple of questions that were submitted in advance. I think it would be great to learn a little bit more about your backgrounds and how you got here, and then we can absolutely open it up to the crew, or if anyone on the phone has questions along the way, certainly don't hesitate to add them to the chat boxes as well, because we'd be happy to kind of, shift and pivot as needed. But I think what I appreciate most about learning from you both, Lisa and Jay, and preparing for this is you guys both have very non-conventional backgrounds. And so can you maybe walk us through your previous experience and how you feel like that has really set the stage for your success in your role today?
Sure. Lisa, do you want me to go first on this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I am a quote unquote serial career switcher. I am a college dropout. So that was my first career of, just flunking out of college. Turned United States Marine, which I did for 5 years, turned IT professional, which I did for another 4 years, turned marketer, which I did for 3 years. And all while doing that, I was building my own like freelancing developer, like slash podcasting business on the side. So when I realized, hey, Jay, you have a lot of different talents, about 8 to 9 years in, I realized I didn't have anything that kind of made me feel like I was qualified for anything other than what I had already done. But I went to a conference and someone said, hey, you should really look into this DevRel thing. It seems like you have all the skill sets of like IT, marketing, speaking, and like you have all those backgrounds. Maybe you can do this job, which is kind of a culmination of those things. And eventually someone told me about an opening at Elastic and I applied, and now I'm talking to Charleston Women in Tech.
Yeah, well, for me, I guess I'm also a serial career switcher. So I actually, when I was first starting out, I never thought I would end up in tech. So I grew up in this strict Asian immigrant household where I only had two career options growing up. So I had to either become like a doctor or a chemical engineer. And so I was, in grad school studying how chemicals in your brain control reproduction. And in my gut, I knew it just wasn't the right path for me, but that's all I knew. So I felt very stuck and didn't think that I could try anything else. And one day I was sitting in a lab measuring thousands of gonads for hours and hours. And I thought, oh my God, there's gotta be more to life. I need a career change. And so I asked myself, okay, well, if I had no fear, no limitations, like what would I be doing? And for me, instead of just focusing on, one molecule, one individual, one disease, I wanted to focus on healthcare system as a whole. So I asked myself, what is the best place to learn how to do that? And at the time, Affordable Care Act was rolling out. And I thought the best place to learn about healthcare system is Washington, D.C. So after graduating, I booked a one-way flight to DC, no job, no connection, no place to stay. And second day, I spent the entire day at the Capitol thinking about why I moved there and what I wanted to accomplish. So I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I could work for Congress where I could learn from the best healthcare experts from around the world? I had no idea how to do it, but I thought the US Senator from Colorado would know the way. So mind you, I have no political connections or knowledge whatsoever. I just straight up called the senator's office and they're like, oh, hey, the senator has constituent coffee hours every week. Like, why don't you come on by? So I was like, yes, like this is my chance. I'm going to talk to the senator. And the next day, the government shut down over Affordable Care Act. So I literally did everything from chasing after Hillary Clinton to interviewing every healthcare professionals that I met along the way. And one of them were like, well, why don't you just start by interning at Congress? And for me, no political science degree whatsoever. I'm just like, what the hell? I'm already here, submitted an application. 2 days later, I heard back from the same senator's office that I wanted to talk to. And somehow I ended up doing legislative research for senior healthcare advisor at the US Senate. And after that experience, my confidence in myself grew and the dreams I had for myself grew. So just to kind of summarize, I booked a one-way flight to Spain, no job, no connection. I don't speak Spanish. And somehow ended up establishing a voter registration organization for American expats in Madrid. Then my confidence grew even more. And I was like, I have so many dreams I want to accomplish, but I need money to fund my dreams. I was like, where's the money? Where's the money? Manhattan, duh. So again, one-way flight, no job, no connection. And then I fell into the startup scene. So I was leading business development and product marketing. And I was like, okay, well, where's the best place to learn about tech? Silicon Valley, duh. So you see a theme here, no job, no connection, one-way flight. And then I was running a startup accelerator for female tech entrepreneurs. Then I was running hackathons and tech meetups until I joined this tech corporation as a programs lead. And I was running their developer relations team in San Francisco. So during that time, I just became so inspired by the impact that developers had in shaping everyone's lives. So I stepped down from my job, went through a software engineering boot camp, and last October, I got my dream job as a developer advocate for Elastic. And now I'm talking to all of you. So
I should mention Elastic does not endorse one-way tickets to any place and just quitting your job. I could not do that. So.
I mean, just think about how vulnerable you must have felt in the moment, but what a growth opportunity for you. Gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
been a crazy journey. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. So another great question I love is both of you belong to underrepresented groups in the technology industry. So can you help me understand or help us understand how have the identities that you held influenced your path in technology?
Do you want me to go or?
It's up to you. I can go, or if you want to. If you want to go first.
Sure. Okay. Underrepresented groups in tech. Well, I chose business development and product marketing side of tech just because I love strategizing and forming connections with people. And it was a good fit for my personality. And for me, I got to meet like just thousands and thousands of software engineers while I was working. And I've noticed that if female software engineers, especially like those who are Asian, who have like a public facing role, were just few and far between. And I thought, a lot of us think like what's possible for us by like seeing the role models who look like us or have similar backgrounds as us. And not only did I admire the impact that developers had, excuse me, I'm like all about like inspiring other people, like to kind of do something, even though they don't have a background that they need. So I just wanted to show that you can become a software engineer if you really wanted to. So I've taken a lot of risks in my career, as I've shared, but becoming a software engineer felt kind of terrifying because I've already established myself in a career at that point and was really taking off. And I was also moving to a different state to move in with like my then boyfriend for the first time. Then the pandemic started and just everything was just so uncertain. But for me, like, it's just at the end of the day, like I knew this is like what I wanted to do. I've done it before many times. I could certainly do it again. So, I drew upon like my identity as a student and enrolled myself into software engineering bootcamp. Then I kind of used my background as product marketing professional to, create projects that really capture people's attention. Then I've also had like a lot of like networking background. So just cold reaching out to teams that I wanted to work with. And now I draw upon my identity as, a student and a teacher. I learn about the Elastic Stack and then teach other developers how to create something with it. So, I mean, honestly, I just think both Jay and I have multiple identities from multiple different industries that we draw upon. And I think, the tech industry is just really celebrates those unique experiences that you bring to the table. So, I mean, if you really enjoy that adapting, learning, and growing, I think tech industry it is for you. Like you will enjoy it very much. So, sorry, go ahead, Jake.
I think that for me, and because I'm not sure if we're allowed to swear or not, I will say I was born.
I think I did earlier.
I was born a hellraiser. Like that's the nicest way of saying it. My platform has always been, if a thing that is happening that I don't agree with, I'm going to address it and I'm going to do it in the loudest way possible. That said, I will also recognize that there have been people, so many amazing people of color, women in tech that have spoken and, giving me guidance on my career that is like, you don't have to be just a hellraiser. You can be a strategic hellraiser. And that has kind of become my platform now. Obviously, being a Black person in the US right now, there's a lot of things to question. There are a lot of things that are happening that are challenging. There are a lot of things that are misunderstood. There are a lot of things that are really hard. Now, being a father of a little girl, it becomes even harder because I can only share my experience as a Black man. I can't share the experience of a Black woman. So what do I do there? One, I lean to my wife as a powerful woman. And my wife is white, so I will say like even she has to ask, how do I teach this side? I lean to my mother, I lean to the people around me, and I lean to the people in tech as well to provide that guidance. And the question of how does that influence my path? It influences it in the way that I want to see the people that are like me elevated and lifted up. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make that a reality. Part of what got me to the role of developer advocate was volunteering for a lot of meetups and organizations. And in many ways, I would volunteer for organizations that I didn't identify with. Cisgendered Black male, I was one of the organizers for We All JS, a group that was for open acceptance of the LGBTQIA plus and tech community. Now at Elastic, I represent the DEI focus for community for all groups, which include everything from expats to refugees to, gender minority, religious minority groups around the world. And I do that to gain their perspective and learn from them how we can best help. A long time ago, I interviewed a good friend of mine, Saranyat Barak from Code Newbie. And after the interview, she said, I love what you're doing. I need you to do more. And it's like, wait, how does that work? You love what I'm doing, but you need me to do more. She's like, yes, you're doing great. Now do more. And I didn't understand what that meant for a while until it was like, wait a minute, I'm doing this thing for one group. I'm doing this thing for my concerns. I need to expand that. I need to expand my horizons and allow myself to be available and be more for people that don't have a platform. And I say this all the time. A part of my job is to give people a platform when they don't have one, whether it's an underrepresented person, whether it was me, the younger version of me when I didn't have a platform, whether it's someone who doesn't look like me, but hey, maybe we both have ADHD. And, in my case as a vet, I can definitely speak to those that have PTSD and how that affects them mentally and how it affects their ability to work. So for me, having my own experiences only makes me question what are the experiences that I haven't had that other people that are also underrepresented have. How do I bring that to attention, and how do I raise some hell for them so that they can, get their own platform to grow on?
That was great. Thank you so much for sharing. So Lisa, this question for you, you had talked a little bit about being in a boot camp. And as you know, with our women in tech community, we have some very seasoned developers, and then we have some brand new newbies, maybe fresh out of school, or maybe looking to make a career change into the technology industry. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you navigated your career search when you were fresh out of boot camp?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I was very intentional about what type of technology that I wanted to become an expert in. So I've been a science geek for a long time, and I just love data. So before I even got accepted into the boot camp, I knew I wanted to go into machine learning, data analysis, and visualization. So when I started the boot camp, I started researching companies that specialize in those areas. And I did this on a daily basis. So like I would read about the Glassdoor reviews, because culture is, it's not about just getting that first job, it's finding the place that you want to grow into as a professional. So that was very important to me. And just keeping a growing list of all the companies that I researched. And I would also cold reach out to people who work in those companies to see what their experience has been like. And I'm a planner. So I pretty much planned out types of demo projects that I built during the boot camp. So my projects always had some kind of machine learning aspect to it. So I already had a portfolio ready to go when I graduated. And I also published blogs about the technology I was learning about. So not only did it help me to consolidate my knowledge, but it really showcased my communication skills. So, I mean, I had recruiters and startups like reaching out to me because they liked the way I wrote. So that was another great way to kind of get my name out there. So I think, my advice is just like getting very clear on what you want and create things as if you already had the job, and just keep just reaching out to people, because people are willing to help. It's just that they don't know how to help you if you don't tell them. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
I love that advice. Great. And again, if anyone has questions, if you want to add them to the chat or take yourself off of mute. Jay, this next question I'll share with you. So we've all experienced a significant change in how we work since the global pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit about how your role has changed and what has helped you stay closely connected with your stakeholders?
So remember the TikTok thing? I think that's really how it's changed a lot. For us, For the longest time, our bread and butter was going to conferences and speaking. I can tell you now, those conferences are a lot different now. We still do them, but often they're pre-recorded talks that are over whether a Zoom call or something like this, or they're being played on YouTube Live. Whatever we want. However the conference wants to figure that out. But it has radically changed how we do what we would call like soft engagement. My favorite part about going to a conference wasn't getting on stage and running my mouth. It was like finding someone that said, "Hey, great talk." And I go, "Oh, thanks. Do you want to have lunch?" And just like making a connection. We don't get to do that anymore. Well, at least not that way. Now you have to do things like stay on Twitter and LinkedIn and see like who's creating content around what you're doing and what you're thinking about and what you're talking about, and go, "Hey, I need help with my own presentations. Can you help me?" I think that's something that in a before world would probably seem kind of weird. Like, "Hey, we work for the company. We're supposed to be the experts." And it's like, "No, I don't really get paid to be the expert. I get paid to know who the experts are. So if the expert is outside of the company, like I'm doing my job reaching out to them." I think that a lot of focus is shifting in that direction now. You see a lot of contributor programs. Elastic has one. You can win some stuff if you want to participate in that. Other companies have them as well, and we're all looking at what each other is doing and going, "Oh, we should do that too." But the industry needs new thinkers because we're not able to operate the way that we used to. And I think that you're going to see a lot of DevRel positions open soon. I'm like excited for it. I can't speak for Elastic. I don't know what we have coming down the road, but I have a lot of friends who are now saying, "Hey, our company's hiring. You should, do you know anybody that fits this role?" And I think nowadays that role isn't someone who's a senior developer that's looking to get out of programming and has done a couple of conference talks. It can be technical writers or someone that loves writing or someone that loves getting on stage and performing. I mean, that's in some ways that's what we do. And I feel like Lisa is the best at it, because when I say, "Hey, I've done this talk," I feel like it's not reaching the beginners. How do I do that? Lisa will like sit down and be like, "Okay, this point, this point, this point, and this point, they're all kind of vague. I would spend a little bit more time on them. I wouldn't talk about this thing so much, maybe this other thing." And we need people that can do that, that can look at a particular topic, that can look at a particular thing and go, "I know how I would do that. And I know that the company isn't doing it that way. Let me put my spin on this."
Wonderful. I see Jessica added a question in the chat box. Jessica, did you want to speak to that? Or we can read it from the chat box. Okay, so essentially it just says, oh, gotcha. No problem. So Jessica's question was, when creating your resume and being a beginner developer who is finishing school with no prior experience, what advice do you have to make yourself stand out against others that are applying for the same job?
I'll take this one.
Okay.
So I think I talked about it just a tiny bit, but it's pretty much creating content or creating anything as if you already had that job. So whenever you are putting your projects on a resume or interviewing, it's really important to do the research about like what their values are, what their goals are, and having like a demo app or a blog or something to kind of showcase just show them how you would be like in that position. I think that would be the best way to stand out, honestly. And let's see how, I guess I could, Jay, do you have anything to say until I think of some examples?
Yeah, I've got a few things. One, you mentioned you're finishing school now, which means that you are interacting with a bunch of people, you're collaborating. I'm sure a lot of schools have team projects, so you've worked on a team before. in terms of no prior experience, I think a lot of that just depends on what the job is. If you're applying for a developer role, like they're going to want to know what you've done with that stack. So I I will say I got a job at a tech company having never been a developer. I'm a developer advocate who talks to developers every day. All of the programming that I had done had been on my own, like either to automate portions of my job because honestly I was checked out and time theft is definitely a thing, but it's easier to get away with if you automate yourself out of a job. But I was able to rely on that and say, hey, here's a scaled down version of what I did. Here's, some examples of apps that I built just because I wanted to see them exist in the world. And they have 1 to 2 people a year who go look at them, but that's okay because they exist and they're out there. And the code is terrible and the documentation is probably terrible too, but I made the thing. And I think more than anything, that shows that, hey, Jay is capable of making the thing. We can put the polish on it and all that stuff after the fact. I think being in a position to where you're just out of school, people will say you're determined. They'll say if you've created stuff, you don't have a lot of experience, which I will tell you a lot of bad experience is worse than having no experience. As someone who was a former Marine, that was the thing that they used to teach us was like, it's easier to teach someone how to fire a weapon if they've never fired a weapon before versus teaching someone who's gone their entire life firing a weapon incorrectly. And those are the people that you have to watch out for. So I would say being in your position of just coming out of school, being a beginning developer, having not ironed in all of those different developer mistakes that people often make and being willing to learn and showing that by building your projects, no matter how bad you think they are, that is how people will stand out. I will look at someone's personal GitHub repo over their resume any day. And if it's empty, I will say, okay, they've learned how to do a resume, but have they actually applied any of the things that they've learned? If I see that you're writing a blog, if I see that you're going on YouTube and you're just trying stuff out, if I see that you're writing code, to me, that says, okay, this person is doing something with what they've learned and they're going to be willing to take chances. They're going to be willing to learn from it and just keep growing. And to me, I think that's probably the biggest way to stand out compared to other folks.
Definitely. I mean, like that's great advice. And actually building something with the product that the company that you're interviewing with, that's like a huge like standout. And then also just cold reaching out. So when I first got out of the boot camp, I literally thought you had to be a developer for like 5 years before you can become a developer advocate. And I was working as an independent contractor at the time. And the company I used to work for used Elastic, and I really loved what it could do. So for me, I was like kind of looking at Elastic's job posting. I saw a developer advocate position and I applied, but I had no idea if I would even get an interview just because I was fresh out of boot camp. And I thought it'd be really nice to connect with the team members, kind of learn about the culture. So I cold reached out to developer advocates, Phil from EMEA, and after reading his blog, and I just heard back from the team shortly after. They didn't know like who I was, but they took the time to like get on the Zoom call and kind of talk about what their values are, what their priorities are. And so just kind of understanding that just really helped me prepare for an interview request that I eventually got. So that's like another way to stand out if you are just beginning in your career. Yeah,
I will say it does help if you know a person on the inside. I won't lie to that. It does help. I got this job because I knew someone who knew someone who knew someone that was looking for that had an opening at Elastic, and they knew that if Jay isn't perfect for this role, then he'll figure it out. And that's all they did. Hey, tell your friend that I know somebody that's available for this. And that person reached out to me on Twitter and said, hey, I heard you're looking for a job. And I just like, yeah, let's have a conversation. And I think that there's a lot of bad advice that goes in with, oh, you just need to network, because that doesn't help anybody. I think you have to not be strategic in a negative way of how you're networking, but be strategic in the way that you network. Don't just hand people your business card and go, hey, I'm looking for job openings if you're available. That's pretty forgettable. But if someone has a question and you work your butt off to just try to help them solve that question, or to maybe ask other questions that might lead them to solving the question or answering the question themselves, they will remember that. And they will remember that you were so eager and willing to help them, even if you didn't know the answer. And you can even kick it off with, I don't know the answer, but I'm more than happy to help you come up with the solution. And the follow-up is always amazing. I'm hoping that most of us are from the South. I'm from Tennessee originally. So I've sat through interviews, and the thing that made a difference was whether or not they sent me an email after the fact saying, I really enjoyed our conversation. I took this particular thing to heart. You know, I hope that I was a good candidate. If not, let me know how I can improve myself to be a better candidate for this role in the future. And by doing something like that, that immediately lets them know, like, oh, they're in it to win it. They want this job. And one, they're going to be nice and approachable as well.
You know, Jay, it's interesting that you said that. I've been thinking of a question and how to pose this question to you too. You're both very different in your approach to things. Jay being a little bit more of an improviser, and Lisa being much more of a planner. Both clearly very successful approaches to take. You know, both of you thoroughly enjoy what you do, and you've driven yourself to be successful. But being that you take these two different approaches, there's some skills that you had to work on, I think, that you would borrow from each other. Maybe Lisa to be a little bit more impromptu and Jay to be a little bit more of a planner. What are some of the things that you would say that you've worked on over the past few years that helped you be successful in this job?
I just ask for help a lot. The things that I'm weak in, I just ask for help. I know I've pinged Lisa a few times of just, hey, I don't get how this works. Can you explain it to me? We have an internal like video call that we'll do occasionally that's like, hey, I need you to explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old, because I have no clue what I'm doing. And I don't want to, like, even with improvisation, it comes with planning and it comes with a lot of practice. So I often will plan to improv in some ways. It's like, okay, I know what direction I need to go. I know where I need to avoid. And in that way, I just kind of go, all right, let's do this. Let's see what happens. If we can't win them with knowledge, we'll win them with charisma and drive, I guess. We'll see what we do.
So as a planner, I have a slightly different approach. So for me, like, I always start with the end in mind. So what at the end of the day, like, would I want this goal to look like? And then I work backwards, and then I just break it down to smaller pieces and kind of work on it one thing at a time. And what we have in common is that, like, if I don't know something, I just don't sit there and just kind of wonder like how I'm going to solve it. I just reach out to people who I know to be expert in that area. And I mean, that has worked out wonders, because we have so many experts who are just willing to spend hours and hours with you to kind of get the ball rolling. So yeah, I think we do have that in common. And I think for me, like, I just really had to learn to kind of calm down when things kind of happen. So for example, we had a community conference, and I think Jay was the moderator.
I was the
the backup.
I was the organizing host for that block. So we had our videos up in blocks, and Lisa was like my backup in case, virtual event, internet might cut out, a talk might not work properly, something will happen. Go ahead, Lisa. Yeah. Sorry.
So this speaker, your 20-minute slot, and we are on live, and then he's nowhere to be found. And Jay just has this like superpowers where he's just like, all right, well, let's just go like, go live. Lisa, you're coming with me. I was like, what? And we're just gonna do like ask me anything session. We'll talk about our experiences, and I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then like we go live, and I'm like trying to smile, and then Jay's just like so smooth. Like I'm just like, God, like I wish I could be more like him. So I am learning from Jay's example to, you know what, if things just don't happen exactly the way you planned it, you could talk and just kind of go with the flow. It's okay. Like nothing has to go everything to plan. So yeah, that's something that I'm definitely learning from Jay for sure. Yeah.
I see a comment in the chat that says it's tough to engage with the community if you're an introvert. I agree 100%. I think there are different ways to engage. I tend to work better one-on-one, and I tend to work better when I'm speaking to, if I'm dealing with a group. Going to conferences and sitting down and then being in like those circles, those we call them Pac-Man circles because we always try to leave a space open so it looks like a Pac-Man mouth like that. I am terrible in those because I have the worst like social anxiety that I'm going to improv a little too hard and say something stupid and then be like, excuse me while I go jump off a cliff now. And I froze. Hold on, let me fix that camera. There we go. Camera's working now. So there's always the like, how do I work best knowing how I work? And I often tell people like, know how you work, know what your strengths are, know what your weaknesses are. The tech space is very much a min-max kind of thing. If you know what your strengths are, focus on those, and on your weaknesses, reach out to the people where those are their strengths. One, you'll be called a team player. So it's a really cool little hack there of like, hey, I'm going to reach out to people on all the things I suck at. Like, sure, that works. But at the same time, don't be afraid to do something and it look bad. I made YouTube videos for 6 years that no one will ever see because they've all been deleted now because they were so terrible. But I wouldn't know how to make videos now had I not made those really terrible videos before. Same thing with podcasting, same thing with just getting on stage and talking. I spoke a week before COVID like hit everybody, and I gave a talk about a platform that I made myself that was bad. It was the worst talk I've ever given. But at the same time, I was worried that they were going to shut down LA because I'm in San Diego and, you know, I had to drive up to LA. Traffic was terrible. I had found out that I had been selected to speak 3 days before. On top of all of that, I found out at the event that I was going first, and there was just so many things that went wrong. And I said, you know what? At the end of the day, if I do a bad job, I'm going to do a bad job. And if nobody wants to talk to me after the fact, that's fine. But I'm just going to go up and do my thing and just call it a day. And honestly, people have been like, oh man, that was a great talk. Like, you look so encouraged and so enthusiastic. And I was basically like Lisa's inner monologue the whole time. Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. Like, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. And in the end, I was like, I will never do that again. But people were like, oh, we love that talk. It was so great. I'm like, sure, fake it, I guess. I don't know.
Any other questions?
I had a quick one. So I help with an offshoot of Charleston Women in Tech, which is called Charleston Girls in Tech. So it's for 12 to 18-year-olds, people who are trying to get into the tech field or maybe think that they want to. What kind of advice should I give them? Like, if you were going to give them advice, some of them are on the line. I know there's other educators on here. What should we be encouraging them with, in your opinion?
I see Lisa thinking, so I can riff while she's thinking. That's how we work. I give her time to think. I just start running my mouth and she's like, here's the smart answer. But By the way, Dr. Sessions, I need to connect with you as well because you're on our list as well of people that we want to work with at Elastic.
I'd love to be on your list.
Awesome. But so my sister and I are very far apart, both in distance because she's in Georgia right now and I'm in California. But she's 16 and we're not going to say my age, but it starts with a 3 and we'll just leave it at that. My mom is crazy. But the thing that I'm learning now is that the skills that she has developed as a 16-year-old are things that it took me years to figure out as an adult. I tell people, don't sleep on these kids. They are smart and talented, and they can speak to their group better than any of us. I have been pushing so hard for Elastic to just be like, you know what, let's just put a bunch of like high school people in the room and say like, look, here are the apps that we help that you use on a regular basis. What do you want us to tell them? How should we be engaging with your community? We're in that space, but we don't know where our industry is going to be in 6 years. But I do know who's going to be leading it, and it's the people that are in CHS Girls in Tech right now. So I want to know from them. Again, I can talk all day about the stuff that I know about, but when it comes to me and what I don't know, I like to shut up and let the experts in the room talk about it. And in that case, it's them. I think that what we should be doing, and I know that's like there's like that whole SNL skit, it's like I wouldn't say anything, I would listen. That in some ways I think there should be a level of, hey, what do y'all want to do? What are y'all interested in learning about? DevRel didn't exist when I was in high school. Developer advocates didn't exist when I was in high school. There's nothing saying what they want to do won't be a career. I literally found out yesterday that you can make a career making pancake art. I was like, okay, well, I guess if that's what you want to do in your life, then by all means, you can have a successful 6-figure business making art with pancake batter. Go right ahead. This is amazing to me. I have purchased a few times a birthday potato for somebody, which is literally a $5 potato that says happy birthday person, and send it to them. And they go, this is the weirdest gift I've ever gotten. Thank you so much, because I know that only you would get this for me. Again, there are so many industries and businesses out there that don't exist yet. I think that the thing that we do worse as adults in the room often are try to direct the imagination of younger folks. And instead we should just be like, play, have fun, do stuff that you like to do. And if there's existing technology that's in place for that right now, cool. If it's not, then hey, how do we make that a reality? Who's the person that we need to connect to show you how to do this thing, and then just basically work our butt off to make that happen?
I guess it's my turn. I'm like still thinking. So this is advice for girls who are trying to get into tech, right?
Yeah, just what we try to do is just show them what's out there and see if that's the career that they want to take. So if they're interested in tech, do you have any advice for them? Other than I'm not going to have them purchase one-way tickets to anywhere. But, I think that's like a liability, but otherwise.
Well, that has worked for me. No. So I think a lot of girls may feel intimidated because they don't see as many role models. And the advice that I want to give them is people are just people. So, I mean, everybody just, like, at the end of the day, they just want to be seen, heard, and understood. And as long as you show them the initiative that you want to learn, and you also care about their well-being and their success, people will just come out of woodwork to help you out. And if you ever feel scared about, oh my God, like, what if they're just kind of mean, or like they don't quite have the skills to like communicate with me in like a warm, nurturing manner, like what would I do? The thing is, like, I think that's like the biggest misconception. I think that the developer community has so much empathy and so much generosity, because this is the profession where everybody knows like how difficult and frustrating it could be. So while I was learning to code, like I'd be stuck on a bug for like hours and hours, and developers who didn't even know me would show up and spend hours with me fixing the problem.
I don't know if it's me,
And that
but
I should
oh,
pay it
there it goes.
forward.
Say that,
So,
say that part again, Lisa. You froze for a minute.
oh, it would tell me that they're helping me out, because when they were beginning in the tech world, everybody else helped them. So this is like a type of community, like you receive help with no judgment, and you give help with no judgment, and you just pay it forward. So I would never feel intimidated to go into it just because you're not the typical demographic of the community that you're joining.
And there, one thing to add with that, there are people out there that will give horrible advice. I think Lisa and I both were told, in order to be a developer advocate, you have to first be a senior developer. You have to have a computer science degree, which again, I tell people like, no, my first job was a college dropout. You don't need that advice. And I'm not going to tell, I'm not going to tell someone that's still like learning that if you don't like the advice, don't listen to it. Because trust me, I wish I would have listened to my mom a little bit more than I did.
Is your mom
But
listening? Is she here?
she might be. Hold on, let me check the chat list. If she is, I don't know. Her birthday was yesterday, so
Oh.
she's been on my mind a lot. But I would I would say that not all advice is good advice, and to examine, just to really think about the advice that you're being given. Um, I'm not going to tell people not to go to college. Again, I did okay without it, but I will tell people, if the route that you want to take is a little different than everyone else's, there's nothing wrong with that. It has consequences. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, but you're going to learn from it. Just make sure that if you think that's the way you want to go, try it for a little bit and see, and let us know how we can support you. Let the people who want to support you know how they can support you. The people that are going to give you terrible advice don't want to support you. They're going to give you the advice and then they're going to go about their business. But the people that stick around, those are going to be the people that want to see you succeed. And I would always say, I ask them, what do you want, and how can I best help with that? Kind of like what we did with Charleston Women in Tech. We didn't have a sponsorship program for, a webmaster endowment of any kind. It was like, hey, we have a budget and we know that there's a need that you may have. How can we fill that need? I think teaching kids to fill the needs of the people around them, teaching kids empathy, teaching kids how to communicate effectively, I think that's going to get them a lot further than any resume building exercises that we can do, or any like, hey, let's code with Scratch or whatever. Those things, they're great and they help, but at the same time, I see so many kids get down on their luck because someone said something stupid to them, and it's like, okay, let me go be the big brother to that kid and like go find out who's been bullying my little sibling. But at the same time, let me also figure out how I can help them learn from that and make them stronger in the end.
And like, lastly, if you do, if you get into the tech industry and it's really not for you, then it's okay. You're not stuck in this forever. I mean, like, you've seen our backgrounds. We're like all over the place and we're alive and thriving. So at any point, if you feel like tech is not the right place for you, just pivot, see like what makes you feel excited to go to work and excited to create, and then choose a career path that fits that, not the other way around. Just try not to fit into like a little like mold just because you think that's how the world works. It doesn't work that way. So that's what I would say.
Our role is in some ways marketing with a little bit of a tech background. And for some people in the industry, it's going to be tech with a little marketing background. But ultimately, you have to have both to be in this space. And I think that that's a good thing. You know, you're going to have kids that are like, I don't want to be a developer. Okay, cool. Don't be a developer. You can still help. You can still be around the space. And if you know a little bit about tech, it can apply and you'll be perfectly capable as well.
Great.
Great.
And
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Valerie. And the comment in the chat box was spot on too. And we talk a lot about that even at Fish Labs when we're hiring developers. You know, the soft skills is so much harder to teach than the actual tech skills. So we'd rather get someone with the right behavior, the right culture fit, the right soft skills all together. And as long as they have that grit and that drive and they're aligned with what we're trying to accomplish, you can teach them all the rest. So I couldn't agree more with that. Any last minute questions that come up before I close out with one final question?
Lisa, where did you grow up? Where did you start off from?
Sure. So I grew up in South Korea until I was 12. And then I moved to San Luis Obispo, California.
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
I know that place.
Yeah. And I like spoke no English at the time. So that was like a rude awakening. But yeah, and so I lived there. And then sophomore year of high school, I moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado. And then, yeah, I just zipped all over the world. And then now I'm back in Denver. Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
Nina asked me the same question. It involves Charleston.
I want to know, Jay, where did you come from originally?
I grew up around Knoxville, Tennessee. My dad, after my parents split, moved from Chattanooga to Charleston. So he still to this day lives in North Charleston now. I moved down to Macon, and then when I was in the military, I went to Japan. And then, yes, go Vols. I have someone on my side here. I'm from the Peyton Manning era Vols, so yes, I love that. But I've traveled all over, but I will say I have a special place in my heart about Charleston. It's my home in many ways.
Well, please make sure you look us up when you come to visit next.
I was in Savannah like right before the pandemic, and I wanted to go up to Charleston because I had my little one with me and my wife was with me, but unfortunately we were on a rental car situation and there was a lot happening. So the next time I'm in town, I will definitely make sure, and I will tell anybody if I'm in town and I'm traveling, if you follow me on Twitter, I'll be like, I'm in this area going to this place. If you know me, come find me and I will buy you a drink and we will just chat and have a great time.
Well,
That is
I will. I'll
my
start
promise.
following you right now.
You can't say that in Charleston. Everybody will be there.
I mean, hey, then it's a party.
Hey, he offered.
Right.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So I always love to talk in interviews, and a great question to learn from. So if you can tell your younger selves one thing, because it was the best lesson that you've learned so far throughout your journey, what would it be?
I know mine.
Go
Lisa, do you
for it,
have
Jay.
yours? Okay.
I'm still thinking, Jay. You know this.
I see the face and I'm like, I should probably go. I would tell myself, I hate this advice at the moment because I'm a basketball fan and they destroyed this thing with trust the process. Like but that would be my advice, is trust the process. My experience, everything that I did led me up to the job that I have. I did a bunch of work for very little pay. I did a bunch of things just because I thought it would be cool. I made projects that I was like, I'm doing this knowing very well. I guess the TikTok meme is, here I am in this cosplay that no one asked for, knowing very well that it will most likely fail. But I did it because I want to see it in the world. And in that case, just do it. Just do it. Especially if it's free, absolutely just do it. Thanks to Lisa, I'm probably going to buy a bunch of one-way tickets now and get in trouble. But I I think that there's a lot of experience that can be gained that comes with just saying, I'm going to do this thing because why not? And as an adult now in my 30s, I'm finally giving myself permission to try a lot more of those things. And honestly, I don't know why I didn't do it sooner.
And
Okay, Lisa.
for me, like, I wish I had known that, whatever beliefs you project out into the world, you get that reflected right back to you. So I used to think, oh man, it's too late for me. I made the wrong choice. No one's going to help me. And, that was like my experience of life. And after I changed that belief to, gosh, I am really capable of anything. And, even when I didn't know how I'm going to do it, I could just take the first step and keep asking the right questions, and the right people will show up and guide me along the way. And, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, and you are going to make mistakes. But I mean, that's part of life. So you just gotta just recalibrate and pivot. And you will as long as you have do or die mentality. I mean, I'm not saying book a one-way flight. Like, it doesn't work for everybody. And everybody has a unique environment that they thrive in. But as long as you keep trying, you'll either end up in a place where you've always envisioned yourself to be, or life has something even more amazing in store for you. I mean, I never thought that I would be a developer advocate. Never thought I'd be technical, but I somehow ended up here. So, I mean, just knowing that you have a choice in life and your beliefs are what unfolds, like what happens in your life. I wish I had known that when I was younger. Yeah.
That's so great. Thank you so much for sharing, both of you. Any other last minute questions?
I want to know how good Lisa's Hangul is to this day.
Hangul? Oh,
Your-
Hangul. Oh,
Yeah.
I still write like a 12-year-old kid. So when I was trying to present to Korean students about the elastic stack, and they were like, oh, you could speak Korean. I was like, oh my God. So I had my dad on speaker dial. I'm like, how do you say this? So yeah.
Oh, I got to travel a lot when I was in the military, and I still say South Korea was my favorite place to travel outside of
Aw.
Singapore, because Singapore is just is amazing, but South Korea, there was such a cultural thing. I think walking through the streets of Busan and then going even through Seoul was just everyone here is so badass, and I just want to talk to everybody and to be why is he running around the streets asking us questions? I don't know what's going on.
Who is this guy? Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again both so much. Thank you for everyone who stuck through. I know it's been a long day and a late night for us, so appreciate you continuing to listen. Make sure you mark your calendars, and good night to everyone.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you.